Before we go into our final wrap up, Asa, you have shown me up totally in terms of how you should compare a session. So thank you so much for just being truly amazing. Before we go for some, so massive round of applause for you. Thank you, Keith, for going there with that. Brilliant. Also, I'm sure that you've got lots of ideas buzzing around in your mind at the moment. Before we go to questions for other members of the full panel, are there any salient points that you think are really sitting in your mind that you'd like to share?
No, but it's been a fantastic day. Wow. What amazing presentations and panels. I mean, this has been just amazing. I've worked with this and these issues around natural resources and development for a longer time, but we've done it with high grade for about 5 years. And I've talked to so many insightful people, and you kind of see over the years the themes that crop up. And really a lot of the things that were mentioned today are things that we are also seeing in our interviews and our discussions, for example, mine closure. And I do come back to this because it's something that is being talked a lot about right now, and people are very interested in it. We did an interview a number of years ago with Caroline Digby, professor and extraordinaire, about mine closure, and the reception was sort of lukewarm. I mean, she's fantastic, but the interest wasn't quite there. But then we have sort of relaunched it, and she discussed the Eden project, which I don't know if all of you know about, but it's a project in the UK about where they turned a mine into this fantastic garden. And from there came a book called 101 Things to Do with a Hole in the... And it's sold out. You can't get a hold of it. It's just nowhere to be found. But people have been emailing me, do you know where you can find this? Because we talk about it in the interview. So I was so happy to hear that the non-miners, our fantastic panels, also sort of brought that up, because that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. How can we restore the land that we borrowed for this and for the human development? So that's really an interesting theme that is coming up more and more. Also ESG, which we also cover from all aspects. We just had a podcast with an institutional investor, a Swedish pension fund, and the ethics council there. And from the investor's perspective, how do they look at ESG? And how do they, because they took the approach that they want to engage with the mining companies to make sure that they improve. So it's a different approach. And then our next podcast that we're releasing is also on ESG and responsible mining from the RMF, Responsible Mining Foundation. So, I mean, we see all these sort of themes coming up. We really feel that the mining industry, well, maybe from external pressure from investors and society, but also that there is this new thinking around their role in society, and maybe COVID helped with that, kind of opened our hearts a bit, I think, and the relationship with communities changed for a lot of companies during COVID. So, yeah, those are sort of some of my random thoughts here.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that, Asa. And if anybody is on the hunt for these podcasts, etc., I'm sure that the link will be put into chat imminently, so you can all go and find them and check them out. And if anybody can track down a copy of one of these books, I'm sure all of us would be very keen to know where you've got it from. Now, also, I know that you've got some questions for those of us in the panel, so I'm going to hand back to you for the last remaining section. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Sarah. Yeah, so we've been talking about this ESG Toolbox, or that's the theme of this conference, and we've heard some fantastic examples and been introduced to some tools this morning. But I want to challenge that a little bit, which is why what we do, we play the devil's advocate. In a fantastic interview we did with Professor Glyn Cochran, who's a community relations specialist with a long career in the mining sector, he raised a concern about the proliferation of toolkits, noting the risk of becoming too prescriptive, too focused on box-ticking exercises rather than the actual work on the ground. Obviously, toolboxes are necessary and helpful, but where do we find the right balance so we don't become too focused on that, but rather on what's happening on the ground? Anyone want to jump on that question, or should I just attack you? Robin, what do you say? Let's see if you're still around and want to take.
Yeah. Sure. I agree 100%. It has to happen on the ground, and it has to get filtered through down from, probably the corporate response down to that site, down to that operation, and infiltrate what's happening on the ground. And that is not commonly happening. So that point is correct. And sorry, there was another point I was just thinking I wanted to raise. No, I've lost it. Sorry. I'll come back to it if I can. But yes, I mean, it has to filter down. That's not always happening. But yeah, that's come back to me. So what we're seeing is that through maybe a management system or other techniques, that's where the attention has to lie. Being able to transfer corporate messages, statements into actual actions that happen on the ground. And lastly, mining companies, they do good. And I don't think, yes, and I fully agree that they don't always do good, but those good stories don't always get told. And I think mining companies also have to have a PR exercise or improve that, sharing what they do well with the public. But they don't always do that. So I just wanted to add that in as well.
Perfect. And Keith has raised his hand, which is a great way of flagging that you want to answer the question. So please go ahead, Keith.
Thank you. I would like to say it's a positive thing that these toolkits are emerging and being tested, because I think it plays into the psychology of individuals and society. These toolkits, these methods are tabled and they make people think, and what comes out of it is what works and what doesn't work. And you think about Sarah's presentation about risk management, which follows on from decades of people coming up with methodologies and little coloured diagrams. And then Sarah really pulled it together into what matters and how you really manage risk. And I see these proliferation of tools go in the same way. It's a good sign of society trying to understand, and then out of that, we will see improvement. So I see it's positive. Not all these toolkits will survive, and we'll see more to come, but it's necessary for humans to understand it from a psychological point of view. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Grant and Lawrence, and I think, Lawrence, you raised your hand first. So go ahead.
Perfect. Yeah, I think the way to look at it is basically from a Venn diagram perspective, as in there's definitely areas where the toolkit overlaps the human interaction and the human interaction overlaps with the toolkit, but one should never rule out the other. And there will be moments where we talked about box ticking, and in the end, partially of the box ticking will make sure that you don't forget about certain things, but by getting back the feedback from the ground, improving your toolkit and making sure that there's a constant dialogue between all the parties, both digital and face-to-face. I think we should need to think about it more as areas that supplement each other instead of that replace each other.
Great. And Grant?
Yeah, just quickly. I was really fascinated by all the presentations, and they were very granular around specifically looking at what mining operations can do differently with respect to ESG. We actually have a different view because our business doesn't look at the individual businesses and what's going on the ground. We actually look at it from a broader whole supply chain perspective. So what I'm focusing on is, it's all very well having 150 mines mining a specific commodity that's needed for a specific product. If they're all trading to various ESG standards, sure, those ESG standards can get better, and you guys are very good at all that, and this discussion helps. What I'm concerned with, what are the 50 mines that we don't even know about, that aren't audited, that purposely hide who owns them, where they're located, what indigenous lands were taken. So I think what's going on in the ESG community is really good with the mines that are being assessed to certain standards. I think our focus as a business is, how do we create a supply chain so they're not penalised because there's some other mining operation that's feeding product into the supply chain that has no ESG standards because no one knows it exists.
Sarah, how do we deal with the mines that are flying under the radar?
So I think there's a huge amount of work actually going on with this at the moment, and that's where the different types of data sets come in. So on Friday morning, we're going to have a very quick interview with Gareth Morgan, the CEO of Terabotics, and they use satellite images along with different types of remote sensing techniques to say, okay, where is their mining activity, what's changing, and then overlaying all kinds of different data sets to say, okay, what does this actually mean? Now, people have used these sort of data sets for many, many years to try and understand that broader change of land. And so going back to the fact that what we're talking about here is the use of land, the stewardship of that land. We're talking about that full value chain and making use of those raw materials and having respect for them. I think this is a case here where mining, and exactly as many of the speakers this morning have been saying, mining is only one component part, and this picture is much broader. I loved what Lensa said about it's not the mining that people have a problem with, it's the context. And that, I think, is one of the really juicy nuggets that we've got coming through from this. So when you look at it from the context perspective, suddenly that ability to verify, understand, and hold different bits of that value chain to account becomes much more interesting and perhaps much more valuable. Yeah, lots more comments that I could add, but I will stop there because I know that Master Zach Wood had his hand up.
Yes, please go ahead, Zach. Did you change your mind?
No, I mean, you said it, and you said it much more eruditely than I could. If we're right to look at mining and to look at them critically, but if we only focus on mining, then we're only doing half a job. There's a whole value chain here that we have to be considering, and that's why I think Grant's sourcing approach is very powerful. I think if we're not looking at that full context and drawing it all together and taking a solid look at it, you know, we're really just speaking into the air. Otherwise, you know, we can keep. And I will point out that it's a weird thing, because when you hear something like the bubble breakers, so powerful, so great, but as somebody who's been in mining a long time, it's so difficult not to get defensive and to go, oh, you guys don't know all the good stuff that they do. But I will point out, you know, during this this COVID crisis in particular, and I'm speaking in particular about South Africa now, but the mining industry did unbelievable work, in many cases covering for a lot of the deficiencies in government, you know, and that's not to have a go at our government in particular. I mean, most people on this call are subject to rubbish governments at the moment, you know, so I mean, there's tons and tons of work to be doing well, but it's all part of a context. It's all part of a big network, and we need to be looking at that whole picture as well. Anyway, but sorry, Sarah, as I said, you said it better than I did. I don't know why I had to repeat it.
But why are these good initiatives not well known? What is it that the mining industry is not doing to communicate those good stories? Is it PR? A PR issue?
Well, I don't think PR is trusted. I think one of the reasons that it's not well communicated is because everybody's a little bit aware that, and this is not mining, this is business in general, has a long history of just putting out rubbish. And that's where I think that all of these toolkits become so powerful, because it's about saying, how do we create an integrated and defensible narrative, a narrative that is data backed and that we can present and we can show and we can say, look, this is exactly what we've done. And so there is that data. It was that Venn diagram I showed earlier. There is the data, but it's the narrative that comes off that data that's so important. And that's not a PR function. That's a case of transparency and sharing and being more integrated as our kind of in our broader ecosystem.
We're getting really to the end of this. But I want to run a quick poll. We'll see how many of you will have time to answer this. But we run polls regularly on our social media, and it's very interesting to see the polls. I'm gonna try a quick one with you. If you had to pick one priority in the responsible raw materials universe for the industry, which one would it be? Any takers? Lawrence, let's start with you.
I would say transparency, because at the moment we've been speaking about managing risks, understanding them, etc. But as long as we don't know who's doing bad, who's doing good, and how are they managing it, I think in the end, transparency and understanding what are the impacts in terms of all the ESG metrics that exist and along the full supply chain, and actually being honest and open about that. That's the only way of gaining these insights.
Okay, transparency is one. Keith, what would you say?
Similar. It's a word that's challenged me for a long time, and that's authenticity. You can go into these things, you can get it wrong, but people are very perceptive as to whether people are being authentic or false. So very similar to what's just been shared.
Sarah?
Oh, I'm dithering between accountability. So actually saying, yeah, this is what I can do, but then more than that, action. So get on and do it. So stop talking about things and actually get on and take action and make that difference, and accept that actually some of those actions may be wrong, but keep a close eye on them and then be able to reverse out of it if you realize it's going in the wrong direction. But we've got an awful lot of talk. Let's now see the action.
Okay. I'm shamelessly turning to you without raising your hand. Do you want to add something, Grant?
Oh yeah, just quickly, yeah, absolutely. Transparency, just to amplify what Lauren and Zach said, and the reason why transparency is so important, because it actually ties to the notions that humans, when faced with truth, make decisions that allow a more fair and equitable world. So, you know, that's why transparency solves issues, because when humans are aware that things are unfair and the resources that we use aren't necessarily benefiting the entire value chain, that we do make a difference. So if we get transparency, we know things aren't perfect, we can shine the light in areas that can help them be fixed. So I think it really ties on the human nature. It's actually a lot better than what people think.
Perfect. Robin?
I agree with all of that. Maybe the other thing I'd add is just governance. You know, we talked about, you know, perhaps mining operations under the radar, you know, then you can call corruption and illegal activities, but if the right governance is in place, that should prevent a lot of the harm companies do to the mining industry. So agree with all of it, maybe just throw in the whole governance aspect.
Perfect. The final word goes to you, Zach.
Well, I could add much, although I noticed behind Grant the little poster there that says "Be brave," and I guess that's another good one just for us all to keep in mind.
And Lensa, you on the word here.
I think empowering communities has to be the biggest responsibility of the mining industry. You can be as transparent as you want, but a community might have the knowledge, but if they don't have the tools to take actions or to stand up against whomever that industry or that investor, whomever it be, then what's the point of them having that knowledge? A lot of us know what's going on. We just are not empowered enough to stand up against them. So empower the community and the land you inhabit. I think that's the biggest responsibility.
Perfect. I think that is it. That was a fantastic poll, and my job here is done. Sarah, over to you.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together, not only for the fantastic panel, but a massive, massive thank you to Asa, because that was truly brilliant. Thank you very, very much. And thank you for steering us through what's been a really, really great session this morning. And wow, are there so many sound bites. Put the heart back into mining. Thank you, Lensa. I've got a computer and I'm not, insert various words, giving it back. Things like that. So some of those comments that came through, truly great. And as Zach said, it is really hard to hear some of this feedback as people who work within mining, but boy, have we got to hear it, because otherwise we'll just be going in the wrong direction. So a massive thank you to all of you. Just to remind all of our wonderful attendees and everybody who is watching potentially on repeat out there in YouTube, because of course, after a year of lockdown, Netflix and all of those other channels have run out of content. So that's one of the reasons why we're here. We are generating more content for you guys to watch. Everything is being recorded. We are on top, I think, of the editing. So you will see that most of the sessions from yesterday already have their videos inserted into those abstracts. We are attempting to collate together all of these different tools and techniques, etc., that we are hearing. We've yet to work out how to actually then share directory of tools, because these should be things that can be used rather than just a tick box or something like that. There's nothing worse than a box just to be ticked. So all of that will be coming, and a massive thank you to everybody who's been getting in touch with us offline and sharing their ideas and their tools so that we can collate all of this together. So this was session 4. This afternoon, because I think most of us here are somewhere along the lines of GMT type direction in terms of time zone. So for most of us, this afternoon, we then go into session 5, which for all of the Americans, yes, this will be your morning session when we go into that. Okay, so this afternoon session is going to kick off with Andrew Buchanan from the Minerals Processing Institute. And we then get off into Monica Ospina, who's one of the most entertaining speakers I think many of us have heard. Last year, she talked to us about broccoli. If you want to find out about why, go and check out her video on the website. Yeah, why was she talking about broccoli? I can't quite remember at the moment, but it was fantastic. Okay, so we're going to hear from Monica Ospina. We've got a whole variety of other talkers, including Maria Arpa, who you heard earlier on today, who had fantastic insight from her bursting the bubble perspective. She's going to talk to us about working with different communities and more than that, sort of how to have those discussions across different parties. We have got members from Sustainalytics, so we're welcoming people who spend their lives creating those sustainability indices. Now there are positives, there are negatives, etc., that come in hand with regards to a lot of those. So we're going to be hearing a lot of the ins and outs of that from Dana this afternoon. And then we have Amy Bullinger from the Initiative for Responsible Mining Assurance. So one of those really very detailed and fantastic modes of assurance that can be used by mining companies, by investors, by customers to ascertain what is going on the ground within those mining operations. And then finally, we finish off with Mark Borbus, who comes from, again, that world of communication and training, who's going to help us with that final panel session. So a really exciting session coming up later on today. You've now got a really beautifully long lunch break to check those emails, maybe go for a walk. It is pouring with rain here in the northeast of Scotland, so I'm going to go and find a different source of power to get me through the afternoon, because that's what happens when you're off grid. But ladies and gentlemen, a massive, massive thank you from all of us, and we will see you all in a few hours. Thank you very much.